I just gave him a look, smiling and arching a brow inquisitively as he looked back defensively. We trot up to the ring, and he collected the missing dart. Fortunately, there were drums and crates to hide behind as we moved towards the other side, where pieces of equipment sparked and whirled. Barely audible over the noise of the distance were several voices. As we moved around towards the front, I saw a generator surrounded by dozens of spent spark batteries. It was connected to one of the machines hooked up to the exterior of the pillars. Flux extraction pump number 26 was written on the casing.
"Try it again!" came Sanguine's shout. "It should work for you! What are you doing wrong?"
"It's not! It won't work!" Psycho-Shy sobbed. "It just keeps telling me how Blackjack is going to kill me! It won't open the casing!"
"It must! EC-11-1 was designed to work, with only a few select ponies and their offspring. It must work for you, Fluttershy. That's what it was designed to do."
Sanguine hissed, and then I got far enough around the column to spot the guards, then him, then the sobbing yellow Pegasus. She looked like hell. Great wads of yellow feathers had been torn from her wings. Her mane was ripped and torn, and her yellow hide was bruised.
"Stop screwing around and just open it!"
"I can't!" She sobbed, hanging her head as her hoof rubbed the Delta Pitbuck that had been ripped out of my leg and duct-taped to hers. It was rubbing her limb raw. The dozen guards snickered at each other, watching the pair. I didn't know if they were protecting him or trying to prevent them from escaping. Sanguine looked at her and said in a low voice I just barely picked out over the pump.
"The last tanker is almost full. Goliath and his mother have already teleported back. As soon as it's full, they're leaving. And either they are going to kill us, or that thing is going to completely occupy this facility. You can do it."
"I can't. It keeps telling me how Blackjack is going to kill us. You didn't say anything about a dead pony talking to me." She suddenly wailed. What was that? Was she talking about Dealer? But he was just my crazy, wasn't he?
"I'm a dead pony talking to you, and I'm telling you this is our last chance. If we fail now, or if glue cracks Twilight's work, there won't be another. I won't leave them down here,"
the ragged ghoul said as he pointed down at the pink mist. Now I really wanted to have a nice long chat with the bastard. Should I act, or should I wait, though? Even if the guards weren't on Sanguine's side, I doubted they would just let me trot right up to him and take him. I looked over to P-21 to see if he had any ideas. He did. He was putting persuasion right at Sanguine and Psycho-Shy. I knocked the barrel up, just in time to prevent him from firing straight or accidentally triggering it. The launcher made its soft thump. The grenade pinged off the side of the pillar and then exploded overhead. From the glare he gave me, I wondered if I was back on his shooty list. Okay, time for Plan D.
"Security! Get her!"
Sanguine shouted as he grabbed Psycho-Shy's tattered wing and dragged her behind cover. The six began to spread out and open fire with machine guns, and Battle Saddle mounted light machine guns, while two more circled around. Get her, though? Really? He was hitting the villain cliches hard. Of course, he'd be laughing last if they did manage to get us. Rampage! I pointed behind us, and the filly gave a salute and scampered in that direction. A few seconds later, I heard her yell, "Tag, you're it!" followed by the crack of her power hoof. That left the three of us being shot at by four ponies, and Sanguine was somewhere in his poison breath. Boo immediately took cover behind a barrel, curling up as tightly as she could. P-21 pulled out a frag grenade, bit off the stem, and threw it over towards the guards. He wasn't the only pony with that idea, as the apple grenade bounced off the crate behind me and landed in my lap. I jerked, tossed it over the edge, where it detonated a fraction of a second later in midair just below us. P-21 leaned to the side to get a better look as he readied another grenade, while I fired with the revolver. Really, right now, I was just grateful for the lack of griffins. My aim was a lot more careful, But with automatic machine gun fire, you didn't need skill, just luck, time, and enough supply of bullets. P-21 rolled a grenade across the catwalk to the base of their cover. "Get ready," he said. "For what?" But the what was answered with a cloud of thick white smoke billowing up, cutting us off from them. I sure wasn't wasting any time. The gunfire slackened somewhat, and I sprinted across the gap, launching myself over their cover. Now was my chance to administer a beatdown on some pony else in a battle saddle. I hooked my metallic forehooves around one light machine gun and pulled back. The mare it was strapped to clenched down on the trigger as I swung her around. Screams and shouts filled the air as the guards fired wildly back at her. Finally, the pins holding the machine guns came loose and I yanked it free. Several rounds smacked into the mare as I swung the gun up and rested it across her back. I looped my hoof around the cable, trailing from the trigger to the bridle, and jerked it taut. Bracing the gun against her body, I fired every round in the magazine in the direction of her comrades. One came out of the dissipating smoke and slammed me against the catwalk rail, the gun falling silent as the mare I'd used for cover went down. The bulky earth pony struggled to simply toss me completely over the edge and into the vast swirly death below. And she was doing it too. I wrapped my hooves around her neck as she shoved me over, halting my plummet. I gripped my teeth and hooked my hind legs to the railing, then extended my fingers and grabbed her own, shoving forelegs. With a yank, I pulled her over the edge with me. Dangling there, upside down, she screamed and landed on some equipment below us. The fall hadn't killed her. As she started to howl and choke, I suspected she wished it had. There was another grenade explosion as I hauled myself up on the side of the catwalk rail with my robo fingers and finally flopped over on the safe side. Then Sanguine emerged from the thinning smoke and took a deep breath. I covered my face with my hooves as his thick pink poison washed over me. I might have held my breath, but it did me little good. Every inch of my exposed skin burned horribly as the concentrated gas touched it. I felt my hide grow sticky. When I rolled to the side to get out of the spray, I felt my skin tear. A second longer, and I would have been fused to my barding on the floor. As it was, I'd left a few square inches of my hide glued to my foreleg and the metal beneath me. I could only hope I'd regenerate, provided I survived. If I hadn't been half synthetic, I think I'd have been primarily glued down by that toxic plume. I reached for the revolver, but it had fallen out somewhere. Sanguine drew in another breath as I stared up at him. I needed a magic bullet. I needed it now. I focused, and stuck him in the face. It wasn't full power, but it was enough to knock him back and halt a second dose of the pink cloud. Psycho-Shy had kissed him? How did she still have a tongue? Unfortunately, lying there made me a prime target for one of the guards' pony. I didn't have a gun, and my horn still ached horribly from the one half-strength magical bullet. The bloodied guard levitated an SMG with a look of pleased satisfaction at my imminent demise. Then there was a clatter of rapid fire directly behind me, shooting wild and uncontrolled. But with machine guns, you just need to have 1 or 2 lucky shots. The unicorn mare jerked as 2 bullets pulverized her face, ripping out her eyes and the top of her head. Her own fire going wild before she dropped and lay still. I rolled to my hooves, expecting to see P-21. Instead, my eyes popped wide as I stared at Boo, gripping the mouth trigger of one of the guns. Her blank eyes stared back, and she swallowed. The gun went off again, spraying me briefly and punching a whole slew of holes in my limbs as I raised them reflexively. I had just regenerated those! The terrified mare let the gun fall out of her mouth as she curled up into a trembling ball again. I didn't have time to be indignant, though, as a second burst of poisoned breath washed over me. I jumped away, my body quivering from the toxic spew, and I turned to face him. One side of his face had fallen away, uncovered bone from mouth to ear, and letting tendrils of pink ooze out the side of his mouth. "Now I see. Easy Limb must be locked onto you or something. When you die, it'll work. I'll be able to save them." "I couldn't save a bottle cap by gluing it to your face," I countered. "I can save them!" he shouted, his eyes going wide. I wondered if he was going to go feral right in front of me.
I'm a doctor. That's what I do. I save ponies.
You're a murderer, Sanguine.
You made me one, he screamed. I didn't want to kill them. I didn't want to kill any pony. I just needed Chimera to save them. If you'd just given it to me, then we'd all have been better off. Red Eye could have his IMP. I would have got a comfortable life in Philadelphia. My family would be safe. Everything promised to me by Golden Blood and Horse would be mine.
He started to pace.
I wasn't supposed to become this. My family wasn't supposed to die. I was going to be Equestria's greatest biological researcher.
He pointed a hoof at me and yelled,
It's not fucking fair!
A pink cloud rose up from his mouth. Your family. I blinked at him in surprise. You have a family.
Is it that much of a surprise?
His horn glowed, and from the pocket he pulled out a cut-up little picture like the ones I'd seen in the office and flung them at me. My pathetic magic only managed to catch one, and I stared. The buck whose face was cut out had been kissing a pretty bluish orange unicorn. I could see the ghoul's charcoal face through the void before I let the photo drop. He hissed. The pink cloud sprang out between his rotten teeth.
Yes, my family. We were supposed to be safe in Stable 1, the finest and safest stable in all of Equestria. But the poison, we couldn't reach it.
He shook his head.
I got them here, but we were sick. Oh, so sick. Then, there was nowhere safe. Here, they'd be safe, where I could heal them, clone them new bodies, transplant organs. They'd live. They'd have to. All I needed was Chimera.
You were doing all this to save your family. I gaped at him. Why didn't you tell me? He snorted angrily.
Are you saying you'd believe me after what I did to your stable?
He had a point. I'd taken one heck of a pounding since then. I'd needed to see that office first. Read that message from a loving wife.
The sick fact is that what I am, this walking corpse, doesn't deserve them. But their memory is the only thing keeping me from becoming a mindless feral. Saving them gives me purpose.
I scowled at him. Why'd you feed me that grand vision experiment on the wasteland crap?
Do you really think Red Eye is big on sentimentalism? On reapers? Or monster ponies? I needed Red Eye's help. He needed Flux and the impelled metamorphosis potion. He'd be able to care for my family, give them life and safety they deserved. I wouldn't have my wife raped by raiders or my sons turned into savages. Red Eye is creating schools, civilization, and he doesn't care if you're a ghoul, unlike Ten Pony.
You put them in stasis pods, like the others, I said as I stared at him.
Yes, but once activated, I couldn't open them. I can't even monitor their status. Chimera could have had to be activated first. I tried tampering with them from time to time, but it was risky. Killed some of the occupants by accident. Woke some other ones up. Told them I could fix them or give them whatever they wanted or needed. Set up some with the Reapers.
He glanced at Psycho Shy before he resumed pacing back and forth.
I learned that the stasis pods has a flaw. Not all ponies put in stayed unconscious. Some were trapped and went insane.
He shuddered, hanging his head.
I couldn't wait after that. Not knowing my family was trapped in their pods, trapped in their heads, screaming. Sent Deus after your stable. Last place Silver Stripe traced it. And then...
He looked at me and screamed.
And then you fucked everything up!
He launched himself at me in a frenzy, a toxic cloud pouring out of every gap and hole in him. I kept backing away, using my fingers to throw crates and barrels in his face whenever he started to exhale. It was difficult, and different than any fight with an enemy with a gun, though. The vapors burned, even without a direct hit. Holding my breath did no good. The toxins were entering through my hide. Finally, I trod on one of the corpses and my legs slipped out from under me.